Welcome to MacStories Unwind, the show that's all about the picks. I'm John Voorhees, and with me is MacStories Editor-in-Chief, Federico Viticci. Hi, Federico.
Hello, John. How are you?
I'm doing great. You know, we're recording this actually before the Apple event. I will tip our hand a little bit in terms of the process here, but as a result, I have Apple events on the mind, which you'll see from my picks. But yeah, I'm doing really well. I always enjoy this time of year when we get new hardware, new OSs, developers are working on their apps. We see new apps. It's a fun time of the year for us.
Yeah, well, we are literally recording this 1 hour before the Apple event. So that's always the longest hour. It's always the longest hour, like it never passes. And instead of just sitting here.
Yeah, it's a perfect idea to record during that hour because usually you sit around kind of nervously pacing in the room waiting for things to begin.
And exactly. And usually this is the event that I'm usually the most nervous about because the new version of iOS is coming out soon, right?
Right.
And I have my review that's pretty much ready to go. I'm really happy that I was able to finish it on time once again. This is just the iOS review. iPadOS will come out later. I will talk about this in the next episode of App Stories that is due to be published whenever the iOS review comes out. We talked about the process in that pre-recorded episode of App Stories. But I'm just here, and I'm usually very nervous about this moment because I'm just here waiting to know, is it coming out on the Monday? Is it coming out on the Tuesday? Is it coming out on the Wednesday? My money's on the Monday, so September 12th, but I guess we'll find out in about an hour or in 90 minutes, we'll know. But in any case, I'm ready. I'm doing the final read-through of the review. I've finalized the perks that will be available for club members. We've done App Stories. We're doing the tests for the ebook that will be available to club members. So all the pieces are coming together. And usually I'm very nervous, but this time I think I've done a good job. I'm reading the review. I'm ready to go. So if it's gonna be Monday, so be it. I will be ready for Monday.
Yep. It'll be good. It'll be good. All right, Federico, let me kick things off. And in keeping with the fact that in an hour we'll be watching the Apple event, I've actually got a dual pick this week. My first pick is just to rewatch the Apple keynote. If you're into this stuff like we are, and perhaps, if you're a MacStories reader and a MacStories Unwind listener, you probably are. I find that it's a lot of fun to watch these things a second time. You can skip over the demos and things the parts that you're not interested in, but I always find that doing that, I just pick up on a lot more little things because especially with these pre-recorded events, which I'm assuming we're going to get today, although I don't know for sure yet, they go really fast and it can be a bit of a blur. And you get to the end, you're like, wait, what did they say about this thing or that thing about the iPhone? So I do if I'm still awake enough, I will do it tonight after the event before I go to bed. Otherwise, I'll probably put it off till sometime Thursday or Friday. So that's my first pick.
Yeah, that's a good one because I rarely have the time to rewatch the September event just because I'm rushing to get the review finished. And usually I have more time to rewatch the WWDC one or an October event. If they do Mac stuff or iPad stuff, obviously, I usually have more time to rewatch that. What I've appreciated in the past few years is watching the recaps. That Apple puts out. Other websites also put them out on YouTube, like a highlight reel, basically, of the keynote. But rewatching the whole thing, maybe you can skip over the parts you're not interested in. But rewatching the thing and pausing and taking a look at photos and screenshots, it's a good idea if you got the time for later.
Yep, definitely. And if you're not into that, I do have another pick for everybody, and it's an Apple TV Plus show called Bad Sisters, which just started up a couple of weeks ago. There are 4 episodes into the series so far. By the time this episode comes out, the 5th one will be on tap. It's going to be a total of 10 episodes, and it's an Irish black comedy based on a Belgian show. And I have really enjoyed this. I mean, this is a story about a group of sisters. There are 5 of them total. And I think that there's an element of this that to me, I kind of relate to only because my wife has 5 sisters. She's one of 6 girls. And so I have kind of this experience with dealing with a large group of women who are all sisters. And it feels very authentic to me from that standpoint. But it's a group of Irish sisters, total of 5 of them, and one of the sisters is in a relationship with a horrible man. He is just a terrible person. He's abusive in the way, in kind of playing mental games with his wife, and really putting her down and gaslighting her. And he doesn't just reserve it for his wife, though. He does it to all the other sisters as well. And so this show opens. You wonder, where's the comedy in this? Well, it is a dark comedy because it opens with this character, the husband, JP, is dead, and they're at his funeral. And very quickly in this, you realize you don't know how he died. That's kind of a mystery. The other mystery is it becomes clear pretty quickly through flashbacks about how awful he is to all these people, that a lot of people had reasons to despise him and want him dead. And so it's really a murder mystery at heart. Whether any of these sisters killed him, some group of them killed him, you don't know. And we're not at the end of the season yet, so I don't know. So I can't even spoil that if I wanted to. But it's really done well because it takes this group of sisters and introduces the characters one by one and kind of starts telling their backstory and their relationship with this man. And the second aspect of it is that the reason that this is being, there are questions about how he died, is that he had a large life insurance policy. And there's an insurance company guy who is running, it turns out he's running this business that was his father's. His father has passed away, and it's in financial trouble. And he realizes that if he has to pay this claim out for this guy who died, that he's going to go bankrupt, that his business will be over. So he and his half-brother, who acts as his assistant, are doing anything they can to try to find a way not to have to pay on this life insurance claim. And one way to do that is to show that his death was not an accident, that it was somehow intentional, and that someone was killing him for the life insurance policy. So that's kind of the setup of the plot. And it's told through the perspective of this insurance guy who's kind of a hapless, bumbling, goofy sort of guy. He's not, this is not like a detective crime drama by any stretch of the imagination. It's an insurance guy trying to be a detective, essentially, and just kind of bumbling his way through talking to the sisters and talking to other people related to the family and trying to understand the story and the relationships of these people. And that's how it all kind of plays out as a drama. And as I said, you realize very early that this guy JP was just a horrible person to everyone. And there are a lot of people who probably would like to have seen him gone, especially the sisters who see their fellow sister suffering, kind of under his thumb in their relationship, but at the same time trying to keep the family together. So there's this family drama aspect of it as well. And like I said, it's just super well done. It's got a lot of cutting, dry humor. It's set in Ireland. I'm not exactly sure where, but great show. And I think Federico, I think you might like this one.
Yeah, I'm into dark comedies. Like that sounds like exactly like the type of show I may want to watch when I'm done with the iOS review. How many episodes are there?
It's going to be 10, and they're about an hour long. So it's a pretty manageable show in that sense. And they're by the time we release this, they'll be halfway through. So by the time your review is out, there'll probably be, there'll be 5 or 6 episodes.
Very cool, very cool. I'm gonna check this out. I'm gonna need content when I'm really done with the iOS review.
Yeah, you will.
Yeah, I got a huge backlog of games that I need to check out, and movies and TV shows that I gotta watch. The only distraction that I allowed myself this summer was the season 3 of For All Mankind, which I absolutely loved. So that was my only distraction. But I basically stopped playing. I very rarely played video games, just for a few minutes. But I did find the time to play one video game that I want to talk about. I think you probably mentioned this one here on the show before. I'm only a few hours into the game, so this is not exactly a recommendation for the entire game. And I'm also conflicted about it. It's a game I want to like, I think is a good way to describe it. So the game is Tunic. The game Tunic. I think you mentioned this when you surprised me with your A&E, probably. You mentioned
I think
playing
that's right.
the game on Game Pass. So Tunic like I mentioned, I'm very conflicted about this game. It has been generally very positively reviewed earlier this year. It came out on March on PC and Game Pass. I believe it's coming out on PlayStation at some point in September. Not sure if it's on Nintendo Switch. I don't think it's on Nintendo Switch yet. So Tunic is an adventure game that at a surface level, it looks like a Legend of Zelda game. It's from an isometric perspective, so it looks like a top-down Zelda game. It's got this graphical style that is very it's very reminiscent of the Link's Awakening remake for Nintendo Switch a couple of years ago. And you control this fox character, right? Which is basically dressed like Link. It's dressed in green, has a sword, has a shield, but you're a fox. And superficially, this looks like a Legend of Zelda clone. It's an isometric perspective. You control this cute character that wants to be a hero, and you explore this overworld that is filled with enemies. But then you can also do dungeons, and you can enter caves, and you can find treasure chests, right? And there's some very basic puzzles at a superficial level. The thing about this game is that it's more... Sure, there's the Legend of Zelda inspiration, but this game also owes a lot to the Dark Souls series, and in a way also to the excellent indie game from 10 years ago, I believe, Fez. And I mention these two games for a reason. It's very inspired by Dark Souls because it's very much combat-oriented, more so than a Zelda game. Tunic borrows a lot of elements from the Dark Souls series. For example, whenever you die, you lose all of your gems or coins, whatever they're called, and you respawn at the bonfire or altar, I guess they're called in this game, that you most recently visited, where you can restore your health and restore your potions, just like in Dark Souls, just like in Bloodborne or Elden Ring most recently. And so whenever you die, you respawn, and you gotta go find, the spot where you died has your ghost, and you can go there, and you can press A, and you can restore your previously lost gems. So it's very much like the Dark Souls or Elden Ring template, where you die, and you get one shot to visit your quote-unquote corpse and get the money that you lost. Upgrades are, well, there's not really upgrades. So this is the thing about Tunic. It's a very mysterious game, right? And that's why I also mentioned Fez. You start the game, and every character in the game speaks this strange language that is not a normal... It's not based on a normal alphabet. It's based on these weird signs that mean something, but you don't know what they mean. And I guess the whole premise of Tunic is this very meta concept of a game within a game, meaning that in order to understand what the characters are saying, what the signs in the overworld are saying, you need to unlock pages of a video game manual. So you are playing
as meta as you can get.
Exactly. So this is a game where in order to progress, you need to unlock pages of a manual about the video game itself. So you're playing the character and you unlock pages that show you as the protagonist in this video game manual. And so the more you collect these pages, the more you understand. The pages serve both as a tutorial, because they teach you about your moves and your combos and what you can do with your inventory. They show you pieces of the map progressively so you can know where you're supposed to go. And they slowly but surely sort of unlock the alphabet of the game. And it's very nicely done. Like, I think this is the strongest part of Tunic, alongside with the graphical style and the music, which I really love the soundtrack of this game. But the whole video game manual within the video game itself, I think it's a really nice concept, and I think it's really nicely done. The problem with this game, and the reason why I'm conflicted about it, is the combat system, which is a pretty big problem if you are a Dark Souls-inspired game where combat is so essential to the game itself. Yeah. This is a hard game. This is hard. It's a very difficult game. It's a very mysterious game that the more you play, and you can realize this even in the first couple of hours of the game, the more you realize the simple puzzles that I mentioned are just a superficial part of the whole game mechanic. There are some pretty advanced puzzles based on the secret language that I mentioned that are going to take a while for you to unlock and understand. But the main problem is the combat system. I'm not sure it feels good. I feel
I've
like
heard that. Yeah, that's a common complaint, Federico. You're not alone in that.
yeah, I don't know how to describe it, but it I don't know if it's the feel of the controls or the physics of the combat system or just the weight of the character, but it doesn't feel as tight. It doesn't feel as fair, maybe as Elden Ring, for example, where
Yeah, I've heard it described as kind of like a lack of precision that just makes it very hard to know how you're supposed to go about defeating the enemies.
maybe it's the way you roll, maybe it's the way you parry an enemy, maybe it's
And the
way
timing and stuff. Yeah.
and the timing, maybe it's the way that even if you upgrade your weapon and your attack stat, you don't necessarily get as strong as you would imagine in an Elden Ring, where Elden Ring, you start off the game and you're like, oh my God, this game is so difficult. Everybody just kills me with one hit. But then the moment you start leveling up and you start upgrading your equipment, then the enemies that looked so difficult to beat, then you can just get rid of them with just one hit. You don't have that quick and natural and fair progression in Tunic right away, which is concerning. But also, there's one aspect of the combat system of Tunic that may seem trivial, but it really makes all the difference, which is enemies never stop chasing you around.
I know.
In Dark Souls and Bloodborne and Elden Ring, if you somehow end up in an area where you realize, oh no, the enemies are too strong for me now, I gotta escape, I gotta run away. Enemies are gonna chase you for a while, but then, even though you aggroed them, as they say in the game, after a while, they're just going to ignore you. You can run away, you can catch a breath and be like, okay, I ran away, I managed to escape, I need to think of a different strategy. In Tunic, you have this problem where the combat system doesn't feel as good as Elden Ring. But also there's the added pressure of you can never escape. Enemies are going to chase you from stage to stage, from area to area. They're never going to stop chasing you around. And so you're forced to fight them. But fighting them doesn't feel as good as it should. So I'm conflicted about this game for this reason. I want to keep playing Tunic because it looks lovely, because I'm intrigued by it. I'm intrigued by the mystique around it. And I really like the video game manual concept, right? And the unlocking and the vibe and the atmosphere. And I just love the little fox character. But the combat system doesn't feel good. And I think, in trying to copy certain Dark Souls elements, the video game developer, this game was mostly made by a single developer, Andrew Scholdice, based out of Canada, I believe. But in trying to follow that influence a bit too closely, when you want to copy the From Software template, you got to make sure that you have a combat system that feels as tight, as polished as it can. And I'm not sure the combat system in Tunic does. So I'm conflicted about it, and I want to mention it here because maybe this is the game for you. And I don't know what I want to do. I want to keep playing the game. Maybe I'm going to keep playing for another couple of hours, see how I feel about it.
Yeah, one thing you can do is you can turn off, your health and your potions going down so that you don't ever die, and you're really just in there doing the puzzles and things. The only problem with that I would say is it does take away, one, a major element of the game, and two, those enemies are going to keep following you even if you don't die, which means you might be trying to open a treasure chest, but because you're surrounded by 9 different enemies, you can't get it open. So it's not really a perfect solution or, way to play the game on easy mode.
Yeah, and maybe I am conflicted about it because Elden Ring is probably going to be, I was going to say Elden Ring is probably going to be my game of the year because I'm still playing Elden Ring, like in my off time when I want to, play for a few minutes when I'm done with the review. I've been continuing to play Elden Ring even though I beat the story because there's so much to do. And the thing about Elden Ring is that, yes, it's a super challenging game, but it's also a very fair game. And once you reach a certain level, once you know the rules of the game, the thing is, the combat system, like fighting enemies in Elden Ring, it feels so nice. That's the thing about it. Yeah. So maybe I'm biased because I just came from something that feels so nice to play to something that it wants to be something of that caliber, but it's not. And so I can see the weaknesses. I can see the things I dislike even more. Maybe if you didn't play Elden Ring this year, you're gonna appreciate the combat system in Tunic a lot more than I did, but that's why I'm conflicted about it. I love everything about this game except the combat system. Will that be enough to push me to continue playing the game, to learn more about the story, to unlock more secret areas, to unlock more pages of the manual? Maybe. I guess we'll see. I know that it's ready on my Steam Deck. It's ready on my gaming PC once I'm back home. So we'll see what happens, I guess.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what you think after a few more hours. I really like this game a lot too, but I have some of the same problems with it. All right, Federico, that's it for this week's episode of MacStories Unwind. Be sure to check out all of our September 7th iPhone and Apple Watch event coverage if you haven't done so already on MacStories.net, and stay tuned for all the fun things we'll be doing with Club MacStories. You can find the two of us on Twitter and Instagram. Federico is at Vitici on both. That's VITICCI. And I'm at John Voorhees. JOHNVOORHEES. Talk to you next Friday, Federico.
Ciao, John.